Okay, we will start. Om. Sound over there. Om. Badram karne bishrunuyama devah. Badram pasye makshabiryajatrah. Sthirairangai tuštuvagam sastanubihi. Vyashem devahitam yadayuhu. Swasti na indro vriddashravah. Swasti na pusha vishvavedah. Swasti nastarkshyo arishthanemihi. Swasti no brihaspatir dadatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Okay, welcome back to Mundakopanishad classes. We have almost completed all the teachings of the Shruti. And what remains is just 3 mantras. And the 3 mantras are in some ways, I would say, closing formalities. We can say something like that. Because most of the teachings are done. The Shruti has logically taken us to the utility of a certain thing, why we should go after jnana, the methodology for that, and what happens to a person when a person is able to experience the jnana for himself. All that it has done in a systematic way. So in the last class, we stopped with this mantra, Yata Nadyah Syandamana, Samudre Astam Gachanti Namarupe Vihaya, Tata Vidwan Namarupat Vimuktah, Parat Param Purusham Upaiti Divyam. So that was the mantra. If you recall, this is what it was. That was the mantra with which we stopped last class, where the Shruti was saying that just as the river, despite its starting from a far off place, gaining a lot of momentum, becoming so vast in its reach and its impact and so on, finally what happens is the river joins the ocean and loses its nama and rupa. As I was telling, you can't get into the Sundarbans, in West Bengal, get at the place at the Sundarbans reservoir, I mean that swamp area, and then go step into Bay of Bengal and say this is Ganga or Brahmaputra. You can't say that. They lose their rupa as well as their nama. So the Shruti is giving that example, that the ultimate lakshana of a jnani is that the jnani will lose his nama and the rupa and become one with the greater reality, the larger truth. So I stopped with this slide last time, if you remember. What is this river joining this ocean? There are 4 things that, if you may recall, we talked about. The first implication of this is losing the identity forever. That's why he said, once you step into the place where the river enters the sea, and then go a little deep into the sea, it's not possible to locate the river anymore. It has lost its identity permanently, not temporarily. It is not that you can put a motor and then suck all the water and bring it back in the form of river. That is a different process. It has to evaporate, it has to become a cloud, then it has to look for a mountain, it has to condense, etc., etc. So it's not possible to locate the river anymore. In the same way, a jnani just loses all his personal tags: name, form, linga, gender, the nationality, the age, etc., everything. That is the lakshana of a jnani. He loses the identity permanently. And this process of losing the identity is irreversible. It doesn't, you can't reverse it. The merged river cannot be sucked back to form the river once again by a reverse osmosis or any such process. As I told you, it's a very different process. It has to evaporate, the ocean water has to evaporate, etc. So in the same way, for a jnani, he may continue to live until he drops his body. But then he will never go back to that old thinking of nama and rupa, I, mine, my relative, my, the mamakara and the ahankara will be lost. So it is completely an irreversible process. That is also indicated by this simile. Then the third thing that also we have to understand is if you just take Bay of Bengal, how many rivers are joining? You just look at the Indian map. You start from Tamraparni, which is the lowermost tip of India, near, 80 kilometers from Kanyakumari, the Tamraparni will merge with the Bay of Bengal. Then you go one step up, you have River Vaigai, then you have South Pennar, you have North Pennar. I mean, you can go on. There's so many rivers. I'm only telling some prominent names. You have Krishna, you have Godavari, you have Mahanadi, you have, of course, the Ganges and the Brahmaputra. All of them come to the same place called the Bay of Bengal. As a limited example, and mind you, I told only some prominent examples. In the same way, the jnani, all jnanis, all human beings finally merge into that ultimate reality. That process is a very universal process. So that is also indicated by this simile, by saying samudre astam gachanti namarupam vihaya. Then the last thing that we need to also understand is look at the river, look at this whole chronology and the temporal aspect of the river. The river starts in some mountain, some far off place, a few thousand kilometers away. Brahmaputra starts somewhere in the Tibet, Chinese side. The Ganges starts at Gangotri on the Uttarakhand on this side and so on. So it starts as a very small piece of waterway, sort of. But then what is really happening? What is really happening is the Karana is water. The Karya is river. Karya is a specific instance of that water. Right? So the cause is the water, the effect is the river. And as we saw in the second Mundaka, the second chapter of the Mundakopanishad, all Karya has to inevitably become the Karana. It's just a matter of time. All mud parts will be broken at different times, but all mud parts will be broken and they will go back to mud. All ornaments will be melted. No ornaments remain. It's a matter of time. All ornaments are melted and they go back to their Karana called gold. So in the same way, that is what is indicated here. All human beings, all Sakala Jiva Rashi, not just human beings, all Jiva Rashi will have to finally go back to that Lord of creatures, the Brahman. So that is also indicated by this nice mantra, which is sort of the last mantra. Yata nadyah sendyamanaha samudre astam gacchanti nama rupe vihaya tata vidwan nama rupad vimuktah parat param purusham upaiti divyam. So with this, more or less, the Shruti has indicated all things with respect to the Jnana and the Jnani. So what is left with us now is three more mantras. There's one more mantra which is also, I would say, uh, talks about what happens to the Jnani. And the last two mantras are just closing formality. So we will see the three mantras today. So we'll go to the next mantra. Mantra 9. Sayoha vai tat param brahma veda brahmaiva bhavati nasya brahmavid kule bhavati tarati shokam tarati papmanam guha grandibhyo vimukto mruto bhavati. So it's a very beautiful mantra, which is a fitting finale to what the Shruti wants to teach us. Saha yaha ha vai tat param brahma veda brahmaiva bhavati. And then there is a sandhi there, so let me do a padacheda. Na asya abrahmavit kule. Nasya brahmavit kule. That is a sandhi. Na asya abrahmavit kule bhavati. That is the first line. Then the second line says, tarati shokam, tarati papmanam, guha grandipyo, vimuktaha amritaha bhavati. So this is the last indication of what happens to the jnani. In this mantra, it doesn't talk about jnani also, it talks about their lineage also. That is what is happening here. So let us look at what it says. So we will do a little bit of a... So yaha param brahma veda, yaha vai tat param brahmam veda, saha, that saha will go there. Saha brahmaiva bhavati. So what is it saying? That person who indeed experienced and knew that Brahman, yaha havai tad brahmam param brahmam veda, saha, that person, brahmaiva bhavati, he becomes Brahman itself. So that is the first part of the first line. So he says he becomes Brahman. Once he gets the experience of the Brahman, he becomes Brahman. That's what is the first half of the first line. Then it says, na asya kule. That kule we will take it to the front. Na asya kule abrahmavit bhavati. So in his lineage, kula is lineage. In his lineage, there will be not even a single person who will be abrahmavit, which means they will also will know Brahman. So they will also become Brahman. So this is a very guaranteed statement that if one person knows Brahman, then in his lineage, everybody will know Brahman. That is what it is, the Shruti is trying to say here. That is the first line. Then the second line, it says, Tarati. Tarati is swims or crosses or whatever you want to say, take it as. Tarati Shokam. He crosses, he goes beyond this whole samsara, which is nothing but punarapi maranam, punarapi jananam, punarapi janani jatare shayanam. Iha samsare bahudustare. That's what Shankaracharya says in Bhajagovinda. So that shoka, that distress, that kind of grief, all that is become a thing of past for this person. Tarati shokam. Tarati papmanam. So he also is beyond all these sinful things, ocean of sin. So he crosses the ocean of sin. Therefore, he crosses the ocean of grief also. That's what the first half of the second line. Then it says, Guha Grandibhyo. The knot in the guha, in the cave. The knot in the cave. We'll explain all that a little later. I am only giving a meaning of the shloka per se. Guha Grandibhyo, the Granthi is a knot. So the knot in the cave. Guha Grandibhyo, from that knot in the cave, Vimuktaha Bhavati. He gets released from that. He gets completely absolved of that knot. And because of all of that, Amritaha Bhavati. He becomes immortal. So basically, this mantra, this is the last mantra which talks about what is the prayojana for a jnani, or what happens to a jnani. It says he knows the Brahman, therefore he becomes Brahman. That's the first thing. Then second thing, it says that in his entire lineage, everybody will know Brahman. It's not only him. Everybody will know Brahman. Then he says he crosses the ocean of sins and grief, etc., etc. The knot in his cave gets completely released and he becomes immortal. So it is a sort of a palashruti for this entire effort that this jnani takes, about which we saw in the second Mundaka and third Mundaka also, first chapter of the third Mundaka, first section of the third Mundaka. Now, there are a few things here which we need to get clarified. Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. One who knows Brahman becomes Brahman. So this is, I was just listening to, the lecture of Swami Paramarthananda on this particular mantra, and he brought a very interesting angle to this whole thing. But before that, this is a very profound statement. The knower of the Brahman, Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The knower of the Brahman indeed becomes Brahman. Is a very profound statement which is found in the Shruti, in our Vedanta literature. But as he was saying, as the Swamiji was saying, this is also a problematic statement, according to him. When he gave some nice example, he says, if this is what it is, first of all, it doesn't make much sense. Because if somebody knows of a virus, he should not become a virus. Can we say if somebody who knows a virus becomes a virus? Or if somebody who knows what is fatness become fat? Or, by knowing fat, one actually does not become fat. So what is going on here? Is there some kind of a logical inconsistency in this statement? Why is Shruti making a statement which does not seem to be very logical in our scheme of things? So this is a question which begs some attention. So for which actually he was giving quite a few nice ideas. I thought I should share those with you. So he, brought out this story from Mahabharata, the famous episode, the famous issue that we know in Mahabharata. And that is about Karna. See, as we all know, as the story goes, Karna was born to Kunti. So Karna is a Kaunteya. He is the Jeshta Kaunteya, actually speaking. Karna was born to Kunti, and as you know, she tried that mantra, and that child was born, so she was too young. So she put the child on a float and then let it on the river. Then one charioteer, Radha, picked up the child and he grew. This story we know. Karna does not know he is a Kaunteya. He did not know until very last. As you know, finally during the war, Kunti goes and talks to him. That's a different story. We'll come to it later. Now, Karna always thought he is a Radheya. In fact, Arjuna refused to actually fight with Karna because he said he is not a Kshatriya. In fact, in the Draupadi Swayamvara, he was not allowed because he was told not to. He was not a Kshatriya. So this kind of stories we know in Mahabharata. But towards the end, when his turn came for as the chief, after Bhishma and Drona, Karna became the head of the Kaurava army. So before Karna Vada, Kunti goes and reveals, Karna, you are my eldest son. Now, what happens here? That he did not know this before, so he obviously disowned the status. Disowned meaning he didn't even know it. So even if somebody told you are Kunti Putra, you would disown the status because he doesn't know. It is only this knowledge which helped him to remove this mistaken status. That when the Kunti Mata herself told in so many details that he is actually not Radheya but a Kaunteya. So what happens then? He actually becomes a Kaunteya. He is no longer a Radheya. Now, you don't have to go up to Mahabharata. You don't have to go up to Mahabharata. See what happens. There are some people who adopt an orphan child. They don't have issues, or nowadays I find some of them even say that even if we have some issues, even if we are capable, but we would like to help the caste like that. Uh, people adopt. Now, the adoption happens when the child is 9 months, within a year, etc., etc. But we know of situations where in some cases the child gets to know it's the best efforts, this whole arrangement is being made. There are situations when the child gets to know its true parents. So, it's like that. At that point in time, that child knows I am so-and-so's son or daughter, which the child wasn't aware until that point. It's exactly the same situation. Karna's situation was exactly like that. He was an orphan and picked up by a charioteer, and he grew up and etc. etc. So the point is, what has happened now? Karna has not acquired anything new. Karna did not acquire anything new. It's only that there is on the contrary, if you think about it, Karna acquired things which he was not. He acquired a status of a non-Kshatriya, which he is not, which he was not. He acquired a status of a Radheya, which he was not. So like that, you can keep on, saying. So what happens is, what is this mantra saying now then? The mantra is saying that although it says, Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati, that Bhavati, although we have translated as becomes, what it means is it is not a transformation. It is actually understanding the true identity of oneself. Swami Vivekananda used to say, Vayam Sarve, Svetasthara Upanishad. In that it is there, Vayam Sarve Amritasya Putraha. We are all children of immortality. But we have so much of, what in Vedanta literature, they call it as Adhyasa. Adhyasa means superimposing a non-existential notion of oneself. In fact, Shankaracharya wrote what is called Chatussutri, Bhashya. See, this Brahma Sutra has some 550 sutras, 580 sutras, I think. So what he did, he took the first 4 sutras. Atato Brahma Jignasa is the first sutra. Right? Shastra Yonitvat, like that. All these sutras are short pieces. So he took the first 4 sutras and wrote a Bhashya for it, which is called Chatussutri, because he took only the first 4 sutras. And is Abhinav Gupta of Kashmir. He wrote a beautiful commentary on Chatussutri. It's called Bhamati. And today, the 4 sutras for which Shankaracharya has written a Bhashya, for which there are 1,000 commentaries written, running to hundreds of pages, just 4 sutras. Anyway, so coming to it, before that commentary for the 4 sutras, there is a very famous one sentence. It says, Asmad Yushmad Pratyaya Gocharayoho Vishaya Vishayinoho Tama Prakasavat Viruddha Swabhavayoho. Like that it starts. What Shankaracharya is saying, it's a very profound psychological analysis of that, each one of us. He says there is something called Asmat Pratyaya and Yushmat Pratyaya. Asmat Pratyaya means all those which can be related to I or we or something like that. That is called Asmat Pratyaya Gochara. Everything that goes to a destination called I. Yushmat Pratyaya means all that things which has its destination as you, your, etc., etc. It's called Yushmat Pratyaya. So he says this Asmat Pratyaya and Yushmat Pratyaya, and he uses Vishaya Vishayinoho. The Vishayini is the Asmat. I is the knower. Vishaya is the you. I mean, his I and you are not the usual I and you that we use. You know, in chapter 13 of Bhagavad Gita, it is called Kshetra Kshetrajna Vibhaga Yoga. The Kshetra is the Yushmat Pratyaya, or the you. And Kshetrajna is the Asmat Pratyaya, which is I. So now Shankaracharya says, this I has, I mean, many of us, in our normal sense of the term, we superimpose several attributes which belong to the you. We superimpose it on I. What is the example? I am fat. That I doesn't have fatness or thinness. The I does not have tall or tallness or shortness or fair skin or dark. They have nothing to do with I. But then we have superimposed all those properties on I. Happiness, I am upset, I am happy. He says all those doesn't belong to I. They are all part of Kshetra. We have thrown everything on Kshetrajna. This is called Adhyasa Bhashya, very famous. I'm not getting the details into it. So what is really happening is, when the Adhyasa is removed, for a Jnani, the Adhyasa is removed, all these superimpositions disappear. So once the superimposition disappears, then the original tattva radiates. That is what this mantra is saying. Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. So the Jiva status is only an acquired artificial status out of ignorance. Moment the ignorance is removed, that's why Jnanagni Dagda Karmanam. That's what in 4th chapter of Bhagavad Gita he says, the Jnana Agni, the Jnana fire will Basmasat Kurute Arjuna. It burns out everything, and what stands alone is the true reality, true nature of oneself. So that is what it is. So the Ahankara, Mamakara, everything will disappear. So that is why, you know, this says basically that Brahma Veda, Param Brahma Veda, Brahmaiva Bhavati. So that is this particular thing. Then comes, what is this? Na Asya Kule Abrahmavid Bhavati. What is this? Why is the Shruti saying that in his lineage, none of them will be born with the ignorance of the Brahman. All of them will know the Brahman. That kind of a guarantee also this Shruti gives. So what is this? Now, in order to understand this, we can actually go to Bhagavad Gita. See, in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 6 of Bhagavad Gita, called Atma Samyama Yoga, this is about Dhyana Yoga. And in this particular chapter, you know, some very, you know, nice instructions. See, there are about 47 shlokas in this chapter. In the first 9 shlokas of chapter 6, Krishna talks about the importance of controlling the Uddaret, Atmana, Atmanam, Na Atmanam, Avasadayet, Atmaiva Bandhuhu Atmanam, Atmaiva Ripuratmana. So, you know, he establishes the importance of, taking care of the mind, keeping the mind as our friend, not as a foe. All that he says. Then shloka 10 to 17, in 8 shlokas in chapter 6, there are clear-cut instructions of how to start this meditation. Very nice. How do you sit? How do you, stretch keep your body? How do you focus your vision, etc., etc. Yuktahara viharasya yukta karmasya cheshtasu yukta swapna avabodhasya yogo bhavati dukkha. With that shloka, it ends. Quick set of simple instructions. Then shloka 18 to nearly 32, some 14 shlokas, Krishna talked about a lot of benefits. What kind of benefits we will get? Atmanyeva tushtaha, atmaratihi. Like that, so many things. Like a hurricane lamp which will not flicker. Those kinds of examples. So many things he said. After all that, Arjuna came back and said, no, Krishna, all that you are saying will not work. All you are saying is good, but that's not going to work. Why? Because Chanchalam hi mana Krishna pramadi balavadridam tasyaham nigraham manye vayoriva sudushkaram. You can't catch air in an open space. What you are talking is something like that. So that kind of question he asked. Krishna again gave a reply to it. Asamshem mahabaho manodur nigraham chalam abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagena jagrihyate. All that happened. Then he asked another question. Arjuna did not leave it at that. He asked one more question. And what was the question this time? He said, you said you do yoga, it will be good. I for a moment, I will agree with you. You said abhyasa, vairagya, all that I agree. But after doing yoga for this lifetime, one day I die. I don't, see all that you are saying. You said so many nice things. I am not seeing any of them, but I die. So the whole thing will be a waste. It's like falling between the stools. I could have at least enjoyed the life here. So what is your samadhana for that? That's the second question he asked in chapter 6. So in reply to that question, the last 6-7 shlokas in the chapter 6, beautifully Krishna gives a reply, and that answers this issue. That's why I have to tell this many story to come here. So what did Krishna say there? He established an axiom. I have mentioned it many times in my lectures in the past. Na kaschit kalyana krit durgatim tatagachati. Arjuna, you understand one thing. Your good efforts will never go waste. Don't, do something and then expect results now. That's a bad mentality. But you believe in this. Na kaschit kalyana krit. If you did some kalyana, some good things. Durgatim tata gachati. Na gachati. So it never gets into a wrong path. That's how he started the reply to him. But in that reply, he said, what will happen to that person? That person who really, tried all these, reached halfway in this Janma. Anyway, he has a Punarjanma. So what will be his sojourn? Where will he go? So I want to bring 2 shlokas from there. It says, Prapya punya kritam lokan ushitva sashwati hi samaha shuchinam shrimatam gehe yoga prashtobi jayate. For all the good acts that you did now, you will go and have an enjoyable benefits of it. But once those enjoyable benefits are exhausted, you will come back to this world, and where will you come? You will have continuity. Shuchinam shrimatam gehe. You will be born. Yoga brishtaha bijayate. You will continue from where you left. This is a guarantee Krishna gives in Gita. Where you left, you will continue, because the soul will pick a family in such a way that it is so conducive for the soul to evolve. All of us are born only to evolve. Whatever, you may agree with me, you may not agree with me, you may see the truth, you may not see the truth, you may get convinced, not get convinced, all those are secondary. It is irrelevant. It is not contingent on that. Every soul in God's scheme of things is born to evolve. The only question is, when every Janma happens, where does it go? And that's where Krishna says it will pick a family where it can move one more point up. right? So that's what he says. That's why he says, Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe Yoga Prashtobi Jayate. Then look at the second sentence, second shloka. Atava, otherwise, Yoginam eva kule bhavati dhimatam. You have continued this journey in such a way that you are just about to liberate. So you will go and you'll be born in a family of people where this is very much imminent for you. Etat hi durlabhadaram. That's okay. He says this is very rare. Janma yat idrisham. This kind of a janma is rare. But the point that Krishna is making is if someone becomes Brahmavit, that means in his lineage, those conditions are perennially fertile. Therefore, everyone who goes through that process will eventually also become Brahmavit. So that is the point. That's what Krishna said. He went on to say that in the rest of the 4-5 shlokas. He said, therefore, don't have these kind of doubts. Go ahead and then, endear yourself into this path of yoga is all that he said. So if you take this argument to its logical conclusion, then what we understand is if somebody comes in a lineage and he becomes a realized soul, there's a good chance that that lineage had all those conditions. So, we are also hearing it in many places. In sannyasi's family, there are many more sannyasis who keep coming and so on. So that is the meaning of this mantra that you have here. Na asya kule abrimhavit bhavati. That's what the Shruti is saying here. Then comes Gruha Grandipyo Vimukto Bhavati. What is this Guha? Guha is this cave in the Chetak Kuhare. This cave in the heart. In earlier 2 mantras, we already seen it. This has been already told. The Shruti only reminds it here. And what are those 2 mantras? It says, Purusha Evedam Vishwam Karma Tapo Brahma Paramritam Yetatyo Veda Nihitam Guhayam. It says here. So Vidya Grantim Vikarati Saumya Saha Avidya Grantim Vikarati Iha. Here itself, he will unknot this ignorance. Guhayam. In that. So same thing it is saying here. Guha Grandibhyo Vimukto Bhavati. This is the 10th mantra, the last mantra in the first section of the second Mundaka. That is the 2.1.10. Then we also saw this famous mantra. Vidyate Hridaya Grantihi Chidyante Sarva Samshayah Kshiyante Chasya Karmani Tasmin Drishte Paravare. Vidyate Hridaya Grantihi. This complex knot that we have, see, for ordinary people like us, the complexities of Sukha and Dukkha, the complexities of life, leading us into a wave of Sukha and Dukkha that we go through, success and failures, feelings of happiness and all that, this whole notion of duality, etc., etc. All that is an indication that the Hridaya Grandhi is entangled, deeply entangled. The ignorance is expressing in the form of a rope. Think of a 10-meter rope which is all entangled. Removing it requires skill, a methodology, a particular manner in which we have to do. Same way, the Hridaya Grandhi has to be loosened. That's what it said in the. After all that, this is the pala which Mundakopanishad talked about. Vidyate Hridaya Grandhihi. Chidyante Sarva Samshaya. All doubts evaporate. Nothing. All doubts evaporate. Chidyante Sarva Samshaya. Kshiyante Chasya Karmani. Which means Kshiyante means it comes down. Asya Karmani, it doesn't stop working. It doesn't mean that here karma means Sanchita karma, Prarabdha karma, Agami karma. That will go. He will not accumulate karma. That is the meaning of it. It's not that people stop doing work. The karma here does not mean that karma. The karma here means, not prarabdha, the agami and the sanchita karmas will just evaporate. Tasmin drishte paravare. When that vision, in that, when he experiences that ultimate vision when he becomes a jnani. So the Shruti is only reminding us once again by using the word Guha Grandibhyo Vimukto Bhavati. So with this mantra, the Shruti completes all the benefits that a jnani will get. Not only the jnani will get, his entire lineage. So the lineage here can mean two. Quite often it means the spiritual lineage, not the family lineage. You know, moment we use the word lineage in a common, which means my son, my daughter, my grandson, my great grandson. It doesn't mean that. That's why I have even quoted this many times in the past. I say Buddha's father can never be a Buddha. Buddha's son can never be a Buddha. So in the family lineage, the chances are less. But when you say lineage, the lineage is a lineage of gurus in which he took his upadesha. This is the meaning. So when it says in the earlier mantra, says Shuchinam Shrimatam Gehe, Yoga Prashto Vijayate, we don't have to take it as a biological relationship. It is this relationship of a Guru Parampara. That is what it means. So that is what it is. So with all this, the Shruti concludes all the benefits that a jnani will get. Now we have just two mantras which will close down this whole text. So we will see those mantras. 10th mantra. Tadetat ruchabhyuktam kriyavantah shrotriya brahmanishtaah swayam juhvata ekarshim shraddayantah teshamevaitam brahma vidyam vadeta shirovratam vidivadhyaistu chirnam tat etat richa abhyuktam. Tat, that, etat, this. I mean, that, what that rich or the Rigveda mantra, abhyuktam. So Mundakopanishad is part of Atharva Veda. So what it does is, it is borrowing a mantra from the Rigveda just to say, I am merely saying what this Rigveda is saying, because that applies here also. So tatetat richa abhyuktam. And what did that Rigveda mantra said? That is the rest of the mantra here. Kriyavantaha Shrotriyaha. That Padacheda, when you do the Visarga will come. Kriyavantaha Shrotriyaha Brahmanishtaha Swayam Juhvata Ekarshim Shraddayantah. So there are 4 conditions laid in the first part. Kriyavantah. Kriyavantah essentially means, if I have to just, sort of quote from, this Shankara Bhashya, Kriyavantah yatokta karma anushtana yuktaha. In other words, all our Shrutis, all our Vedic corpus never says you give up your work. Yata varnashrama vidihi tata asmavihi yat karaniyam tat kartavyam eva. That is a required condition. So that is indicated by kriyavantah. Whatever is the ordained work that we have to do, we have to do. Na karmanam anarambat naishkarmam purushoshruté. That's what chapter 3 of Bhagavad Gita says. Why do you do it? Because you have to evolve through your work, and you have to continue to do the work until you drop your body. Whether you become a jnani, sannyasi, those are different. We are all ordained to do some work, so we have to do it. So such people, that's the first condition, kriyavantaha. Shrotriyaha. Shrotriyaha means those who read or hear the Shruti, the Veda, which means the first condition is you have to be part of the society. As part of our Varnashrama Dharma, what we need to do, we have to keep doing it and get Chitta Shuddhi through doing that work. Condition 1. Condition 2, while you are doing it, you also become a Shrotriya, which means that you develop deep interest in the Vedic and the Vedanta and all these great concepts of Atma Vidya, and then devotedly, Shrotavyaha, Mantavyaha, Nididhyasitavyaha. Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana. Hear it repeatedly, try to slowly let it percolate into you. Do a manana or a mantana if you want. Churn it. Keep on churning it and try to make sense of it in your own way. Merely hearing any number of times, it doesn't take us anywhere. So Shravana, Manana and Nididhyasana, see if we can imbibe a little bit of it and bring it into your own practice. So that is the Shrotriyaha. So the second condition is such people who are Shrotriyas. If they do these two devotedly, they will become Brahmanishtaha. Their focus will not waver. Nishtha is a single pointed focus on a thing. So that's called Nishtha. So Brahmanishtaha. So the third condition, what it says is that they must slowly develop that focus into understanding that Brahman. So that is the third thing, Brahmanishtaha. Swayam Juhvata Ekarshim. So there is one fire called Ekarshi fire. These are all part of this, Vedic lore we will understand. So Shraddhayantaha, with a lot of Shraddha, with deep faith, they Swayam Juhvata. I mean, that is an indication of the Kriyavanta, that ordained duties which are all to be done, they are doing devotedly. So that is what is in the first line. So it gives three conditions for those who must receive this knowledge. That is what this mantra is saying. Kriyavantaha Shrotriyaha Brahmanishtaha Swayam Juhvata Ekarshim Shraddhayantaha. Then the second line says Tesham Eva Etam, Teshamevaitam. So there are three words there. Tesham Eva Etam. Teshameva Etam Brahma Vidyam Vadeta. Impart this Brahma Vidya only to such people. Eva, Teshameva. Not to anybody else. Teshameva Etam Brahma Vidyam Vadeta. In other words, it says who should be taught. In fact, many of our scriptures will say that. It either says who should be taught or it says who should not be taught. I mean, either ways you clarify the stand. So in this mantra, it is saying who should be taught. And that's where the four conditions are put. Kriyavantaha, Shrotriyaha, Brahmanishtaha, Shraddhayantaha. Swayam Juhvate Ekarshim Shraddhayantaha. Such people who fulfill these four conditions, Tesham Eva Etam Brahma Vidyam Vadeta. So please impart this knowledge only to such people. This is what the Rigveda mantra is saying. Like that, the Mundako is quoting now. Mundakopanishad is quoting that. Then it says, Shirovratam Vidivat Yaistu Chirnam. See, the Shirovrata is actually a certain kind of sort of a ritual, sort of a practice for Atharva Vedis. The Shirovrata, essentially carrying the Agni in their head, and then Yaha tu Chirnam. Chirnam means observed. This Vidivat, as per what needs to be done. This is for the Atharva Vedis, because this is part of the Atharva Veda. It is just giving that kind of a reference. I mean, essentially the message here that you see in this mantra 10 is that it says people who have, it talks about the Adhikaritva. Who has the Adhikaritva? Who is eligible to receive this teaching? So he must have practiced Karma Yoga. The Kriyavantaha is basically talking about the Karma Yoga, and then all the Swayam Juhvata, Ekarshim, Shraddhayantaha, all of them indicate not only the Karma Yoga but also the Bhakti Yoga. Because without devotion, knowledge does not happen to a sadhaka at all. Devotion is very important. It melts this personality and then brings the better out of the personality. Therefore, nobody can be just a dry Vedantin. I mean, that's very hard. Okay, some Saguna Upasana really helps. So one must have the adhikaritva. It talks about the adhikaritva that is required of a. So just to tell you that this is part of our practice. In our scriptures, you will find it. So let me go to Gita again. The 18th chapter of Gita, you will find a similar shloka. So let me bring you to that shloka. So what does it say? Idam te na tapaskaya na bhaktaya katachana na cha susrushave vachyam na cha mam yobhya suyati. See here, Krishna says, who should not be taught. In the earlier mantra in Mundakopanishad, it said who should be taught. Whereas here it says who should not be taught. Both are same. Either you say who is eligible or you say who is not eligible. So he says, idam te na atapaskaya. People who don't have tapas. Tapas is chitta ekagrata. Tapas is a single pointed resolve that I want to benefit. I want to be what the Gita is saying. I don't want to read Gita for the sake of it. Right? So therefore he says, idam te na atapaskaya. Everything is na. You see here, everything is na. Don't. Na abhaktaya. Kadachana. Kadachana means at no point in time. Never teach these to those who don't have bhakti. That's why it says, na abhaktaya. Don't teach. Nacha susrushave. Susrusha means shrotum icchati iti susrusha. One who is very keen to listen. Because there is that atanga. I want to become better. I understand Gita can help me become a better person. That kind of that atanga must be there. So people who don't have that atanga, don't teach them. Na susrushave vachyam. Whatever the Gita says, people are not going to listen with keenness. Don't teach them. Then nachamam yaha abhyasuyati. Those for whom Krishna is a fancy idea just to do some kutarka, just to find a sort of a fault line and try to say Gita is useless, etc., etc. There are a lot of people like that. Don't teach them. See, one gentleman came to me several years back, and a foreigner actually came to me personally. I had a little conversation with that gentleman. He shared with me some of the things that he has done in the name of Gita, all that. I went through all of them, but somehow it happened to me in my mind that I should not be actually spending time with you. Really, as I said, I'm too busy. I'm not in a position to really, carry this conversation any further. Like that I did. Why? Because I felt like that. I felt if people don't have that sense of seriousness and respect for Gita and Krishna, we should not, right? So that kind of a thing. That's what Krishna is saying here. So to just tell you, this is a sampradaya. You may be wondering why are we doing this? This is a sampradaya which is very much part of our culture. So what is that? It is called Anubandha Chatushtayam. There is something called Anubandha Chatushtayam. In Vedanta Sara, this fifth sutra, it goes like this. Tatra Anubandho Nama Adhikari Vishaya Sambandha Prayojanani. So there are four things here. Adhikari, Vishaya, Sambandha, and Prayojana. That's what it is talking about. So this is called Anubandha Chatushtaya. Our texts always say that if somebody pursues a study, a literature, a study, or something like that, then there are four things involved in it. First thing is adhikaritva. Is that person worthwhile to go through it? If a person is not worthwhile to go through it, we should not, encourage, we should not spend our effort in that particular matter. So, one day people asked me, sir, this Gayatri Mantra is now being played out in all tea stalls. So why are they doing like that? I said, it will not create much difference. In fact, I am not saying it. I read it in, a similar thing. I read it that came to my mind. The Shankaracharya of S12 Shankaracharya of Shringeri, Chandrasekhar Bhattacharya has actually said this somewhere. I think that's what came into my memory, I think. I said, we don't have to worry. It will have no prayojana. It will have no effect. Because without adhikaritva, the mantras, that potential power of mantras will never manifest. Manyantam trayate iti mantra. You have to have a sense of thing. That is called adhikaritva. Sense of seriousness, sense of devotion. What all we said in the previous mantra. So that is called adhikaritva. Somebody else, I wouldn't use the word eligibility. The moment you say eligible and ineligible, then the whole argument of discrimination and all that will come. I'm not talking about eligibility. I'm talking about, has somebody the capacity to listen, capacity to absorb, capacity to imbibe, capacity to live through it, and capacity to radiate it and then transmit it to others. All these are required. Otherwise, it will be nishprayojana. So, adhikaritva. Then every literature has a subject matter. Then there is a prayojana. If you take Mundakopanishad, the subject matter is to know oneself. And the prayojana is what we saw just now. That you liberate tarati shokam, tarati papmanam, etc., etc. And then there is the sambandha. What is the sambandha between the Vishaya and the Adhikara? What is the sambandha connection between the Vishaya and the Prayojana? What is the sambandha between Adhikara and Prayojana? All that we saw in this also. What is the Prayojana for the Adhikara? What is the Prayojana for the Vishaya? Everything we saw. So, in that context only, Adhikaritva is coming. And this is a tradition in our country. It should not be misconstrued as a discriminative kind of a statement, all that. It's not. It's about saying we should put effort where we must. So a person who receives the teachings must be worthwhile and capable. I mean, that's what they do in every institution in modern times. They do it in a different way. They keep an entrance exam, all that kind of thing. So everywhere you have to actually look at the adhikaritva and so on. So that is being indicated in this mantra. And that is the culture, as I told you, in all, literature you will find in this country. So Shruti ends with that, reminding us that the Anubandha Chatushtaya, particularly the Adhikaritva, is very important before this teaching is important to others. So that is the 10th mantra. Then we have the last mantra of the Upanishad. Tadetat satyam rishirangiraha purovacha naitadachirnavrato dhite namah paramarishibhyo namah paramarishibhyah. Tat etat satyam. That is the truth. This is the truth. And this is the truth. Angiraha purovacha. Sage Angiras. If you remember the first Mundakopanishad, first mantra, third mantra in the first chapter, it says Shaunaka Mahashalaha Vidivat Angirasam, Papracha. Kasmin Vignate Sarvomitam Vignatam Bhavatiti. By knowing that I will be known of everything, please tell me what is that. And the whole conversation, not really a conversation, the whole teaching was by Angiras. So that is what this is saying. Tatetat Satyam Rishi Angiraha Purovacha. This was told by Rishi Angiras long back. First two mantras of Mundakopanishad talks about it, if you look at. Na etat achirna vrato adhite. It once again reminds adhikaritva is important. Here it is telling in a negative way. Na etat achirna vrato adhite. Those who have not observed all that conditions which it talked about in the mantra 10, it recalls that, and it says that such people should not be taught. Then the Upanishad ends with Namah Parama Rishibhyo, Namah Parama Rishibhyah. Our salutations to the great rishis who have imparted such great knowledge and have painstakingly preserved it for thousands and thousands of years and brought it to us so that we are able to dip into it with our limited knowledge and make a little understanding of it and find ways in which we can imbibe it in a small way in our own lifetime. So with this, Mundakopanishad comes to an end. I will, as the practice is, we will recite the Shanti Mantra at the end, because that is a practice. So we will recite the Shanti Mantra and then conclude this. Om Badram Karne Vishruniyama Devaha Badram Pashyemakshabiryajatraha Sthirairangai sastanubihi Vyashema devahitam yadayuh Swastina Indro Vriddashavaha Swastina Pusha Vishwavedaha Swastina Starkshyo Arishtanemihi Swastino Brihaspati Dadatu Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So with this, we bring Mundakopanishad to a close. What I will do is, I will do one more session in which I will summarize the entire Upanishad as has been the practice in the past. So the next session will be a summary of the Mundakopanishad. Next week being Diwali, I am not going to have the class. So 12th November, we don't have the class. On 19th November, we will have the last session in which I will summarize Mundakopanishad. Thank you. Shubharatri.